Welcome back to the channel, you guys. Today, we have a very fun video. I wanted to go through some 2025 releases that I feel should be highlighted, maybe noted. I wanted to kind of go through some of the movies that we haven't really seen anything for, whether it's a trailer, maybe a poster, maybe we don't know anything about it, maybe we know who's involved, but we don't know really much else, right? We're gonna be talking mostly about movies that we really haven't seen much for, movies that we know about, but we're, excited for. I know I'm excited about some of these. I don't know about you guys. Today's gonna be a very fun video, and I do just want to kind of see, what movies we're gonna be seeing in the next few months, the next year or so, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to see so much about all these movies, and as I was writing this video, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's coming out this year. I can't believe that this person's actually doing this movie. So much of this year is gonna be so much great stuff, so let's just dive in, you guys. As always, with a lot of these videos that I do just kind of want to preface it by saying some of these titles I will be going into very great detail about. Some of them maybe not so much, because some of them just interest me a little bit more than others. One thing to note as well is that we don't have a full actual list of everything that's going to release in 2025, as there are 2 or 3 major festivals every year where movies get bought at. A lot of the indie titles that we will probably see more of releasing this year are going to be premiering at Sundance Film Festival coming up in the next few days, and maybe by the time that this video is released, we'll see a number of titles that were bought, a number of titles that will be distributed by a certain company, but until then, we will be going over some of the titles that we just know of currently. The secondary festival that we typically see a lot of when it comes to films being distributed as well as films being premiered at is Cannes Film Festival, and that is usually from the 13th to the 24th of May. So we'll probably hear a lot more about some of these major releases during that festival as well. I'm going to skip to about mid-March, maybe early April, maybe even like late April it looks like is the earliest. I have a few of them. But the reason for this is really just that there's a lot of movies I noticed that are coming out very, very soon. In the next 2 or 3 months, I would say, that we have nothing for trailers, for even posters, maybe a few, right? But I really just want to comment on some of the movies that are on this list. Some people just don't know about, a lot of these movies I forgot were releasing this year, and it was kind of, looking through the list of releases. If you follow any film releases, development, stuff like that, I hope that this video just kind of serves as a refresher, a reminder of what's coming this year. Let's go ahead and dive in, you guys. I want to go ahead and just talk about some movies. The reason that I even came up with this video to begin with was the fact that I noticed that the Until Dawn movie was coming out in April, I think 25th is what I saw last. And we hadn't gotten a trailer for it quite yet. But in the time that it took me to write this video, with all the information that I needed, we got a trailer. So we're still gonna talk about it. We're still gonna kind of discuss it. And again, that's not just to say that we're not gonna talk about every movie that's coming out this year, just movies that I think are kind of notable, some information about all of them. There's definitely gonna be a few that I left off this list just because some movies are just big enough to not talk about. We already kind of know they're releasing. For example, Superman. I'm gonna mention when it releases. I'm not gonna say anything about the movie. I feel like if you already know about Superman, you kind of already know what you're walking into, right? This video, 2025 releases that we have seen nothing for yet, or mostly nothing. First film on our list to talk about is Magazine Dreams, written and directed by Elijah Bynum. He did Hot Summer Nights, actually one of the first few films that you might have seen Timothée Chalamet in, as well as a film called The Deliverance that released on Netflix about a few months ago, maybe last year, I want to say. I didn't watch it personally, just didn't seem like my cup of tea, but I do also want to mention something about this movie, and that is that it actually premiered at Sundance a few years ago. And if you're wondering why you haven't seen anything about this movie, why this movie hasn't been released up until now, it's because Jonathan Majors is the lead in this film. One thing that I kind of noticed that I thought was kind of funny about the IMDb page and the poster that they have up for it currently, the only photo that they had available whenever it was premiering at Sundance. So it's kind of funny that this movie just really hasn't seen any sort of development whatsoever. They just took the exact photo that's a still from the movie and just added a title at the bottom. There doesn't seem to be any real official poster for this. And it does say releasing March 21st. So I don't know who picked it up. I don't know who the distributor is. I didn't care enough to look into that, but the synopsis reads as: an amateur bodybuilder struggles to find human connection in this exploration of celebrity and violence. I will say, I was really excited to watch this at one point, and I think this was probably before all of this stuff happened with Jonathan Majors and we found out who he really was as a person, but I don't know. I still plan on checking this out. I feel like I like Hot Summer Nights more than most people did. I didn't love it. but you know, it was one of those movies that I didn't hate as much as other people. Another movie that I came across while I was looking through the list of releases for 2025, which definitely is not releasing this year, but I thought I would mention it because it's kind of funny anyway, is Passion of the Christ Resurrection. And it does say now that it's been fixed to be releasing in 2026, but being directed by Mel Gibson, who's also doing Flight Risk this year. So there's that. I don't want to talk about Flight Risk though, just because
I don't need a pilot.
Yeah. April 18th, we have two films releasing that, funny enough, kind of seem to be maybe in the same realm of like genre, kind of what they're trying to be. We have The Ritual, a film by director David Maidel, and Sinners, written and directed by Ryan Coogler. We're gonna talk about The Ritual first, directed by David Maidel. The reason that this is on this list is because the only information I could really find about this that really intrigued me was, first off, this poster. I don't know what this is. Interests me though, you know? And the synopsis also kind of intrigued me a little bit because I love this storyline here, and I feel like this film is just probably not gonna live up to the expectations I have, but we're gonna talk about it anyway. Synopsis reads as, two priests, one questioning his faith and one reckoning with a troubled past, must put aside their differences to save a possessed young woman through a difficult and dangerous series of exorcisms. This film stars Al Pacino and Dan Stevens. Ashley Greene is here. Now I'm looking at the cast, who, if you don't know, plays Alice in the Twilight Saga. So now I'm even more excited to see this. I don't know if anybody has really been talking about this, you know, if there's been anything about this film really. I'm excited. Dan Stevens and anything he's in really kind of kills it. And Al Pacino, we just haven't seen that much of lately. I feel like the last time I saw him that was in anything genuinely good was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and even then, he is such little screen time in that film. So, you know, maybe redemption for Al Pacino getting some screen time. But back to Sinners. Sinners, written and directed by Ryan Coogler. We already have a trailer for this, but I wanted to kind of just address this one again. Synopsis reads as, trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them. I have not been like crazy about the trailer that we have seen so far for this. I mean, I've never been led wrong by a Ryan Coogler film. Even the worst Ryan Coogler film, which I think is Wakanda Forever, is still pretty good. I do personally love Fruitvale Station the most, and I think that is his strongest film. I do kind of wish that he would kind of go back to making a film that is so emotionally rooted. But when it comes to this specific film, I want to throw its hat in the ring just for the IMAX of it all. If you can't tell, I'm a big IMAX guy, and this movie I think has already changed release dates. I think it was meant to come out in March is what the trailer looks like, but they pushed it to April. I think I read something about there being an issue with the film processing. It being shot with IMAX cameras is probably one major thing that they had to consider, and that's just, you know, pushing it further out. Michael B. Jordan is playing basically two characters. But one thing that really interests me about this film is that because it got pushed to April 18th, and because there's so much about the IMAX format surrounding it, are we possibly getting an IMAX release for this film? And when I say IMAX release, I'm not talking about IMAX digital. I'm talking about an IMAX 70mm with the 15 perforations. And I'm hoping that we do. Even if it does get an IMAX release though, it does kind of concern me that maybe only a few major cities will get it. Joker Folie à Deux most recently got a 70mm IMAX release, as well as the Interstellar re-release, but depending on where you are, you may have had to drive or even fly to go see any of these specific showings. I know I very much considered going to see Interstellar's IMAX re-release and driving to see it, and the closest one to me was 8 hours away. I did drive 4 hours to go see Tenet's re-release, but I don't know if I'm willing to just go do that for any movie or even a film directed by Ryan Coogler. So I guess we'll see. You know, I guess maybe once we hear some more about this film, we can kind of get more in line with what our expectations can be. Up next, April 25th. And this is one that I really have not seen anything about. So this is kind of our fresh start here. We have The Accountant 2. Returning as director from the first Accountant film is Gavin O'Connor, who also directed The Way Back, which also stars Ben Affleck. Kind of a nice partnership that we have there. The writer Bill Dubuque, or Bill WK, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but also returning. He wrote the first Accountant film. We haven't seen a trailer for this. We haven't seen a poster for this. And as far as I can tell, there's not really any sort of synopsis for it. Funny enough, if you look on IMDb though, there is a runtime out. So, you know, I don't know how likely to believe that if we don't even know anything about it. Also releasing on April 25th is Until Dawn, directed by David F. Sandberg. His return to horror after being stuck in DC superhero jail. But funny enough, he has had an extensive amount of shorts that he's released recently, but he hasn't had a horror feature in a few years. So it's nice to see he's back. Writing the film, we have Blair Butler, who wrote a film called The Invitation, Polaroid, and Hellfest. I have seen Hellfest, didn't love it, didn't see Polaroid, but I remember that one also having kind of some trouble with its release date, as well as The Invitation, which I didn't love, but I also felt like I was very lied to by the trailer. And I felt like, you know, if I had known what it was going into, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. But as a secondary writer, we have Gary Doberman, who did actually also direct Annabelle Comes Home and Salem's Lot, the newest remake that was just dumped on Max recently. I didn't hear great things about it. Funny enough, though, Gary Doberman also wrote Annabelle Creation, and Annabelle Comes Home, which he co-wrote with James Wan. He also wrote It Chapter 2, The Nun, and the Salem's Lot film. On May 23rd, Lilo & Stitch remake, live action, directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, who directed Marcel, The Shell, with Shoes On. Now, when it comes to this film specifically, we have seen a little bit, but nothing that feels really concrete. And maybe by the time that this video is out, we do have an actual trailer for it. But as of now, we do have a teaser. I'll say it. He looks cute, okay? He looks cute. Stitch looks cute. I'll give him that. They nailed that part. But when it comes to the actual, you know, story, we haven't really seen much from the trailer. I mean, this is a remake, so we can know what to expect. But how do we feel about performances? How do we feel about the look and the style and just the, you know, overall feel of the movie? We have nothing to go off of. We have that one trailer, a teaser, really, and that's it. And it premiered, I think, with The Wild Robot a few months ago, and that's all we've had to hold on to since. As far as the writers go, we have Chris Canyo Kalani Bright is his name. We have Dean DeBlois? I don't know how to say his name. I'm gonna put it right here though. Dean DeBlois, who wrote the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, and then also as a writer, and Chris Sanders as well, who actually helped with writing the original Lilo & Stitch film. He did help with Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Mulan, the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy as well, and The Wild Robot. As far as the actual film goes, I don't know how excited I am for this. I do think it'll do very well money-wise. I mean, it's a remake, it's a live-action remake. All of these, most of them have done pretty well. But, you know, just don't really have that much in terms of faith for this film. Actually, I'm gonna say this. I'm looking at the cast now, and apparently Zach Galifianakis is in this. That might be the only thing that saves this story. And funny enough, he's playing Jumba, so do with that what you will. Hold on. Oh, Nosferatu just dropped on digital. I gotta buy it, hold on. Okay, anyway, May 30th. This is one I'm actually really excited to talk about, so let's get into it. On May 30th, we have The Life of Chuck, directed by Mike Flanagan. And the reason I'm excited for this movie is for a couple of reasons. One, Mike Flanagan, as a writer, as a director, has just impressed me so much. He's not always hit, but he takes some bold risks, and that's what I like about him, right? If you don't know who Mike Flanagan is, he's done films like Hush, he's done Oculus, he's done Dr. Sleep, and when it comes to some of like the miniseries stuff that he's done for Netflix, this is kind of where he's really thrived the most. He's done Haunting of Hill House, he did The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, as well as The Fall of the House of Usher. Those are the titles that he's kind of known for the most, but he's done a lot of other films as well. But Stephen King talks very highly of him. But one thing that I will say is that even though we haven't seen anything about this film other than maybe a few stills, some people have seen the film. It premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 6th, where I believe it was acquired by, I can't remember what distributor, and I'm too lazy to look it up right now. So, doesn't matter. It's getting a release. It is coming out May 30th. The synopsis doesn't really tell us much. It says, a life-affirming, genre-bending story based on Stephen King's novella about 3 chapters in the life of an ordinary man named Charles Krantz. I have not talked to anybody who has seen it personally, but if you just, you know, do some digging online, it seems like the majority of people really like this film. And a lot of people were actually very much surprised that this didn't get a 2024 release because it was so revered at that festival. And my guess is the reason that meant, like much like other people, is that if they bought the film, whoever bought it, whoever got the distribution rights for this, and didn't release it in 2024, it's probably because they think that they have a really good chance of winning something for the following year, maybe when it comes to Oscar season for 2026. So, who knows? You know, maybe I'm stretching here, Maybe I'm really reaching, but I personally think, and this is just me, based off of what I'm hearing online and some of the reviews that I've read that have really talked very highly about this film, that's probably what is going on. Let's go ahead and move on from this though. June 6th, Dirty Dancing 2, directed by Jonathan Levine, written by Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis, who both were writers on 5 Feet Apart, The Curse of La Llorona, and a new writer named Elizabeth Chomko. There's not really much about this film. There's no synopsis available. It does say the plot is kept under wraps. I did read off the writers to you as well as the director, and the only person who's currently attached right now is Jennifer Grey. I don't know much about this. I'm not a fan of the first Dirty Dancing, to be honest. I've never really cared that much about it, but like I said, you know, we don't have anything to really go off of with this, other than the fact that it's releasing June 6th, so it's not that far away. But yeah, we've got that to look forward to if you like the first Dirty Dancing. June 20th, 28 years later, Danny Boyle is returning in the director's chair after taking a backseat for 28 weeks later. And again, this is a movie that we do have a trailer for, but I wanted to kind of just highlight it because it is such a big movie and I'm personally very excited for it. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland co-writing for this film. One major thing to also note about this film is that it is actually the first film that is set to be part of a trilogy. The second film is going to be titled The Bone Temple, and it's set to be directed by Nia DaCosta. The third film has no title yet. I'm excited for this. You know, one of the major things that I do kind of want to talk about as well with this film specifically is just that it's shot on an iPhone. And by looking at the trailer, you would have no idea that that was the case, just because iPhones have just evolved so much in terms of footage that you really couldn't tell by looking at this. I love that the first 28 Days Later has this really shitty look to it because of the way that it was shot with the digital camera and the digital technology at the time. And it makes you wonder, like, yeah, this iPhone footage looks really good now, but 20 years later, are we going to be saying the same thing about this movie? You know, will this iPhone footage hold up? And in a way, kind of just feels like an homage to the first film in the way that it was shot. I'm really excited for this. I'm very interested by this. I like Alex Garland. I know a lot of people didn't love Civil War, but I have been there for every movie he's made. I personally don't think he has any misses. I do think, you know, Men is a bit polarizing for a lot of people, but I'm excited for this. You know, I personally think this is going to be a hit. I'm excited to see it. What are your thoughts? 28 days later, 28 years later, I'm sorry. Yeah, are you gonna check it out? Are you not? Let me know. Next up, June 27th, a film that I did not know was happening, and I had heard kind of, you know, things here and there, but I wasn't sure if that was real or not. Megan 2.0. Returning in the director's chair is Gerard Johnstone, as well as the writer Akela Cooper, who I didn't realize was also a writer on *Malignant*. Allison Williams is set to return, and funny enough, a really strange casting choice, Jermaine Clements is here as well. There's not really much to go off of about this film. There's not a poster, there's no trailer, there's nothing to really look at with this, but it is happening very soon, it sounds like, June 27th. Don't know how to feel about this. I didn't love the first Megan film. I also didn't care that much about it. I could understand the campiness and I could understand having fun with it to an extent, but I really just did not love the first film. But clearly it turned a profit. It was enough to garner a sequel. Allison Williams came back for it. I like Jermaine Clements, so maybe this is a better sequel. Maybe this is a better film. I guess we'll find out on June 27th. Up next, on July 2nd, we have Jurassic World Rebirth. In the director's chair, we have Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, Godzilla, and most recently, The Creator. The writers are Michael Crichton and David Koepp, and the synopsis reads as: 5 years post-Jurassic World Dominion, an expedition braves isolated equatorial regions to extract DNA from 3 massive prehistoric creatures for a groundbreaking medical breakthrough. I don't know what to say about this, I'm gonna be honest. I think I'm just kind of Jurassic Worlded out. Jurassic Parked out. I don't know what to say about this. I am very excited by the fact that Gareth Edwards is in the director's chair, but that doesn't really mean much to me when I haven't cared about the last like 2 or 3 movies. There was a short that was released that I thought was really good, and I thought, wow, like let's get more of this, but it was just that one short. I'm sure that someone will probably tell me down below what it was called, but you guys probably know what I'm talking about if you do. But The Creator, I liked The Creator. I liked it a lot, actually, and then after that movie released, after like a week, I forgot about it completely. His Rogue One movie also kind of feels like there was too much studio interference, and then Godzilla, his messiest movie that I thought was personally the best film in the sort of like MonsterVerse, you know, Monarch series that they have going. I don't know what it's called at this point, but I thought his was the best one. I thought it was the best Godzilla film we've gotten in years, so it makes you think, you know, when it comes to the scale of dinosaurs, when it comes to the scale of this kind of world, Gareth Edwards can very well be good at it, but I don't really know if I care that much about this at this point currently. I'd like to be surprised, but Jurassic World Rebirth just doesn't really seem like it's anything I'm even remotely interested in. Jonathan Bailey and Scarlett Johansson in this image, which funny enough, I remember when I saw this image for the first time, I thought that was Haley Atwell. Mahershala Ali's in this. Ed Skrein's in this. I have a feeling he's probably gonna be the bad guy. Got an interesting cast. Yeah, I don't know if I care that much all about this movie. What's your favorite Jurassic Park movie? Actually, here's a more interesting question. What's your favorite Jurassic Park sequel? And why is it Jurassic World? And even then, it's still kind of just very weak. Let's talk about it. On July 4th, we have a film that I cannot believe is releasing. And I did some digging, so, thank me for this one here in a second. We have an untitled Trey Parker comedy coming out. The film stars Kendrick Lamar. I don't even know if this is an actual synopsis. This is just the only piece of information that I could find about this film. The film will depict the past and present coming to a head when a young black man who is interning as a slavery actor at a living history museum discovers that his white girlfriend's ancestors once owned his. Do with that what you will. I don't know what to say about this. I'm interested. This is like the one thing in this list that I saw that I was like, I want to know more about this immediately. And I can't say that for a lot of movies in this list because I just feel like it's just remakes, sequels, whatever it might be. But this one genuinely feels like it's something that is it just interests me. You know what I mean? The minute that the trailer drops, it's gonna say something along the lines of like from the creator of South Park and the Book of Mormon, which I'm pretty sure is also getting a film adaptation. I don't know when. I think this film will do pretty well. And on top of that, if you know what you're walking into with this film, you're probably gonna enjoy it. On to the next movie. July 11th, Superman. What is there to say about this? We have a trailer for it. James Gunn is directing. Like I said, we're gonna talk about some movies that have trailers. This is a major release, so I do have to kind of mention it. I don't really care about it that much, to be honest. The trailer doesn't really grab my attention. I like James Gunn, which is weird. I like the Christopher Reeves films. Even the Bryan Singer film that he did is kind of decent, but this film itself just does not call my attention. If you know about this, if you're excited for it, I'm probably not gonna change your mind. So let's go ahead and move on. July 18th, I Know What You Did Last Summer. From what I understand, this is kind of like, and I gotta look into it a little bit more, but this is kind of following the same thing that happened with Scream 5. It's sort of a legacy sequel, remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it. Director, Jennifer Caitlin Robinson, who did a film called Do Revenge that did very well on Netflix. But at one point, I believe Mike Flanagan was attached to direct this, which is interesting for a few reasons. One of the writers, Lois Duncan, the original writer of the I Know What You Did Last Summer, but Jeff Howard wrote on Oculus, Gerald's Game, Ouija, Origin of Evil, Haunting of Hill House, Midnight Mass, all films and all projects that Mike Flanagan directed. So the fact that Mike Flanagan was at one point attached to making this movie, maybe not this exact version, but a version of this, is interesting. I don't really care that much about this. I didn't love the first one when I watched it. It's never been the kind of movie that grabs my attention. The most interaction I've had with this film is in Scary Movie. All of the jokes that is about this film I find more engaging than the actual film. So there's that. July 25th, we have The Fantastic Four: First Steps. In the director's chair, Matt Shakman, which we will come back to. This movie in particular is not one that I think I need to talk about in this video because we already know that it's releasing this year. But we're gonna talk about it regardless. There is no official footage that has been released for this film, but there is footage available online if you are interested in seeing any of the characters, how they look, how the suits look, stuff like that, or even the visual style of the film. This will mark the introduction of the Fantastic Four characters into the MCU after the failed remake from 2015. And one thing I kind of want to note about this film is I am so excited for Ralph Ineson playing Galactus. That's all I gotta say, because everything else just feels like a really safe, really obvious choice. Like, I don't like the casting. I think it's kind of boring, it's kind of lazy, it's kind of uninspired. But Ralph Ineson as Galactus is like the one thing I'm holding on for with this movie. Like I said, we are coming back to Matt Shakman as the director. One thing I do kind of want to know is just that he's primarily worked in TV. I mean, he's worked on over 30 shows, and I only want to name off a few that I think are big enough that kind of, you might know some names here. Fargo, Weeds, Chuck, New Girl, House, Mad Men, The Boys, Monarch, Succession, and WandaVision, of course. And the only reason I want to mention that he's primarily known for TV is just that I tend to hear this one thing about the MCU a lot, and it's that the movies that started to kind of look like TV shows, and it makes me wonder if that will work in at all in its favor for this specific film. It makes me wonder, will they lean into it, or is he going to try something new? I guess we'll see. I'm excited for it, kind of. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I'm not. Like, I think the minute I see Ralph Ineson as Galactus, or even hear his voice as Galactus, I don't know how they're going about it, to be honest, I'm gonna lose my mind. So I'm excited for this. I am. I'm not gonna lie. I have kind of gone away from like really loving MCU work in general, but just Ralph Ineson is just such a great actor, and I'm so excited to see him. So we're gonna go ahead and move past this. I don't even want to talk about the cast. There is no synopsis for this available. I also don't really care to talk that much about the cast, so we're just gonna keep moving on. On August 1st, we have The Naked Gun. Of course, this is a remake of the wildly popular film from the 80s, I think early 90s. Leslie Nielsen is in them. But one thing that really caught my attention here is Liam Neeson as the lead character. And say what you want, man. Liam Neeson is old, okay? I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I think this is the perfect role for him. I'm dying to see Liam Neeson doing something funny. Like, Pamela Anderson's in this, as well as Paul Walter Hauser. There's not really a synopsis for this as of now, but another thing to kind of note is it is being directed by Akiva Schaffer, who is actually 1/3 of the Lonely Island Band, and he also directed Hot Rod, as well as Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. He has directed a number of music videos for the band as well, but this is the first film I see him like kind of doing outside of the realm of anything Andy Samberg related or anything Lonely Island related, so I think it's cool to see that he's kind of branching out. I'm not expecting much from this movie, but again, Liam Neeson, dude, we just kind of need to see him in something new. I'm tired of seeing him in these movies that just go straight to theaters, maybe 2 or 3 people watch, and they're basically just like knockoff versions of Taken. I'm excited to see it. You know, I don't think it'll be amazing, but there's something there that I will be seated for, you know? August 8th. Paul Thomas Anderson's The Battle of Bacton Cross. I do want to say, this isn't an official title. It will more than likely be changed. I do know that this has been one of the working titles that I've seen online for a long time, but I'm excited for this for a few reasons. One, Paul Thomas Anderson is just the GOAT. One of my all-time favorite directors. There Will Be Blood, The Master, Inherent Vice. But second, getting an IMAX release. We've known that for a few months now, I believe. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, Regina Hall, Alana Haim, and Teyana Taylor. There have been rumors about this film as a whole, you know, is an adaptation of a novel that many people have thrown around as well. But I'm excited for it nonetheless. We will be there day one. On August 15th, we have a film called Mercy. And this one kind of caught my attention just because of the director, as well as the stars that are in this. It kind of just feels like a hodgepodge of people that are all working together for no apparent reason other than maybe the story is just that good. Directed by Timur Bekmambetov, the director of Wanted, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and the Ben-Hur remake that came out the last decade or so. I don't even know what year it came out. The synopsis for this reads as, a detective is accused of a crime and is forced to prove his innocence. So it's not a lot of meat on its bones right there. But this again could change in the next few months. Once the film gets closer to its release date, we might know more about it. And once the trailer releases, we'll have a better idea of what kind of film we're looking at here. The film stars Rebecca Ferguson, Annabelle Wallace, and Chris Pratt. And that's kind of what caught my attention. These 3 actors, the director, the story, just kind of feels like a weird, strange mix. Not a bad mix, but a strange one. Moving on to the second film being released on the same day, Nobody 2. This is a sequel to the same film called Nobody. In the director's chair, we have someone new, Timo Tjahjanto? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but currently, there's no synopsis. The only thing that we really know about this film currently, other than the fact that this guy is directing, Bob Odenkirk is returning. I think that's a safe bet. It may not be as good as the first, it may be better than the first. Trailer incoming, I'm sure, in the next few months, as well as a poster, but as of now, we don't really know anything. Moving on to August 29th, we have 2 back-to-back horror movies that I want to talk about. One is on August 29th, September 5th. Rival weekends, right? Thread, An Insidious Tale, and The Conjuring Last Rites. Let's talk about Thread first. This sounds like it's a spin-off of, you probably can guess, Insidious? I think we're at 5 movies in now. We're 5 movies in now, and this is the first time that they're really calling anything like kind of a spin-off, where it's like an Insidious Tale, which I think is kind of dumb. You know, any movie that has this, from the world of, from the book of Saw, I think those are stupid, I'm gonna be honest. Just call it Insidious 6. But the film is titled Thread, An Insidious Tale. It's directed and written by Jeremy Slater, who worked on The Lazarus Effect, the Fantastic Four movie from 2015, the live-action Death Note remake, Moon Knight, and Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. So, if you enjoyed any of those films, maybe you'll enjoy this. The film currently only has 2 actors attached to it, Mandy Moore and Kumail Nanjiani. The synopsis reads as, a couple resorts to a spell to travel back in time, hoping to prevent their daughter's tragic death. That's all we got. Do with that what you will. I'm gonna be honest, I'm surprised that we have gotten 6 movies out of Insidious. Insane to me. But September 5th, The Conjuring: Last Rites. This is the 4th film in the Conjuring franchise. I think if you look at the entire franchise as a whole though, this is probably like 8 or 9, depending on what movie you're looking at. I have them all back here. Give me like 2 seconds. Let me count. This is the 10th movie. How? This is crazy. Okay, alright, so The Conjuring: Last Rites, being directed by Michael Chavez, The Curse of La Llorona, The Nun 2, The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. The Curse of La Llorona being in his filmography is strange to me in the fact that he did The Nun 2 and The Conjuring 3, because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that The Curse of La Llorona was like part of that franchise. They like really egged that on. They really emphasized that like La Llorona was coming to the Conjuring franchise, and then the film released, no one watched it, no one liked it, and they're just gonna act like it didn't exist. They're just gonna act like they never made that movie. It's kind of funny to me, but whatever. The film has 3 writers, including Ian Goldberg, David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, which is one name, and Richard Nang. David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick and Richard Nang have both worked on some projects within the Conjuring universe previously as well as some of the DC Aquaman films with James Wan. One thing that I think is kind of funny as well, both projects that James Wan sort of pioneered, brought to the table, Insidious and The Conjuring 2 and Insidious 2 were both films of his, and there's no way that these both stay in the same release dates. I think The Conjuring is going to get pushed, or Insidious gets released earlier. Who knows? Moving on! September 26th, and I'm very excited for this film, The Bride, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. We haven't seen really much of anything for this film, but we do have some photos from the set. I do just want to highlight some of the cast members here as well. We got Jake Gyllenhaal returning to act with his sister, Christian Bale as Frankenstein's monster, Jessie Buckley as the bride, Peter Sarsgaard, John Majaro, Penelope Cruz, and Julian Huff, and Annette Bening. Huge cast. I mean, what is there to say about this, dude? I'm very excited for this. I love that Maggie Gyllenhaal's in the director's chair. She also wrote the thing. Synopsis currently reads as, in 1930s Chicago, Frankenstein asks Dr. Euphronius to help create a companion. They give life to a murdered woman as the bride, sparking romance, police interest, and radical social change. I don't know, man. It's cool to see that a lot of like the same like Universal monsters are kind of getting their own resurgence. That they did try to redo it with the Mummy movie that came out in 2017, and that one obviously just kind of felt very forced. I think that's probably why nobody wanted to touch it. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we have the Wolfman, we got the Invisible Man. I don't know if the Wolfman's actually doing that great, to be honest, considering that it's in theaters for a few days now, and I've not heard a single person recommend it to me. And I have wanted to go see it, but the fact that like no one's talking about it has kind of like made me not want to see it. I don't know. On the same weekend, Saw 11. Returning in the director's chair is Kevin Grudert. And there's not really anything about this. There is like a poster that looks like a placeholder on IMDb. I don't know if this is official, but there isn't any plot details. There's not really any casting details on whether or not Tobin Bell is actually returning. My guess is he probably is, considering how well Saw X did, but who knows? I think the last Saw movie was a really great return to what we needed from those stories. I don't think it's going to be as good as Saw X, and I think if anything, it's probably just going to, keep declining in quality, just kind of like the original ones did. Another Saw movie. I'm there. I don't care. I'll do it. Moving on. October 3rd, we have Michael. This is a biopic about the life of Michael Jackson, directed by Antoine Fuqua, who directed Training Day. He did Olympus Has Fallen. He also did the Equalizer trilogy. He's done a number of other films, but those are kind of the ones that he's most notable for. The film was written by John Logan, who has written, most recently, he's got a lot of credit. Kind of just name off the ones that he's really known for. Alien Covenant, Skyfall, and Spectre, Hugo, Rango, The Aviator, and the original Gladiator film. There are some photos from the set that we could take a look at here as well, but Jafar Jackson will be portraying Michael Jackson. Jafar Jackson, I believe, is Michael Jackson's nephew. Let's take a look at the cast, right? We got Miles Teller, Coleman Domingo, Laura Harrier, Cat Graham, and of course Jafar Jackson as Michael Jackson. I will say, I'm not that crazy about this movie. I'm sure it'll be good. I'm sure it'll be awesome. I love Michael Jackson's music, and I'm sure that once the film gets closer to release date, I'm going to be very excited for this. But just the details of what we have now, I just can't help but feel like this is going to be a safe movie. There's nothing that really says bold to me. And that's fine, you know? I'm sure that once the film releases, I'll like it a little bit more. And I'm sure that this is gonna be one of those Oscar baity kind of movies where they're gonna push for some sort of like performance. My guess is supporting performance maybe for Miles Teller, maybe Coleman Domingo, Laura Harrier, or maybe all three of them. It's a biopic. We see so many of them every year. I'll watch it. I just don't think I'm that crazy about it. Like, it's not at the top of my list. On the same weekend, October 3rd, we have a film called Roofman, directed by Derek Cianfrance, maybe. Director Cianfrance, that sounds better. Director of Blue Valentine and The Place Beyond the Pines. He has done other films, but those are the two that he's probably the most notable for. And the two that I really kind of love him for. The cast, Juno Temple, Kirsten Dunst, Channing Tatum, Peter Dinklage, Ben Mendelsohn, Lakeith Stanfield, and Tony Revolori. Tell me that doesn't sound like an incredible cast to you. This caught my attention for a few reasons. And this title itself just seems kind of strange. Roofman, right? Did some digging after reading the synopsis. Really caught my attention. First off, the story of the rooftop robber, Jeffrey Manchester, and his time on the lam evading capture. That's the synopsis for this movie. His time on the lam evading capture, dude. Turns out that this is a true story that really happened, and this cast alone kind of has me interested, but I don't want to know anything else. I'll wait for a trailer. I'll wait for a poster. I don't care. I could have read more about this story and I didn't. I want to see it on screen. I think that says a lot. It reads interesting to me. I think I'll be there day one. And if anything, this looks like the kind of movie that might be garnering some sort of awards attention. That's probably why the cast is so vast. I'm excited. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. October 10th, Tron Ares, directed by Joachim Ronning. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think he's Swedish. Known for The Young Woman in the Sea, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Written by Steven Lisberger from the original Tron film. The synopsis reads as, a highly sophisticated program, Ares, is sent from the digital world into the real world on a dangerous mission. The film stars Jeff Bridges, Greta Lee, Evan Peters, and Jared Leto. There's a lot that could be said about a Tron movie. One that would create a Tron trilogy even. But the one thing that I think I find interesting about the world of Tron is the world of Tron, the video game, being a part of that world. And the fact that the plot of this movie is, we're actually going to take you out of that world and we're going to put you in the real world. And even if you're including some of the elements of that, I just don't really think you're going to pull it off. Sorry, Disney. It just doesn't grab my attention. And the fact that Jared Leto's involved, sorry, you're done. I want to be excited for this movie. I really do. I love Tron Legacy. I even love the original Tron quite a bit. But the director just doesn't have a great track record. And Steven Lisberger, as much as I would think could make a great movie, doesn't really seem like he's worked on anything other than Tron. So I want to have hope for this. I do. But Jared Leto just being involved, just immediate red flag for me. And I defend Jared Leto quite a bit. I want that to be known. I think he's got some really great performances, but lately he's just been more misses than hits. And it's just the truth. I'm sorry. October 24th, we have Mortal Kombat 2. And this is, of course, a film that we don't really know much about, to be honest. The only thing that we really know so far is that director Simon McQuoid is returning, as well as the majority of the cast. The plot details are being kept under wraps, and we haven't really seen anything about it so far. So let's move on. November 7th, we have 3 releases that I'm insanely excited for. First off, we have Bugonia, a film by Yorgos Lanthimos. Predator Badlands, a film by Dan Trachtenberg. And The Running Man, a film by Edgar Wright. We're gonna go one by one, so don't worry, we're not gonna lose any details here. Bugonia, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, written by Will Tracy, who also wrote The Menu, and Jang Joon-hwan. The synopsis reads as, 2 conspiracy-obsessed young men kidnap the high-powered CEO of a major company, convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. The film stars Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. Tell me that you aren't buying your ticket right now, even though they're not available. Tell me you're not sad, and the film's not even out yet. I'm in. I love me a good Yorgos Lanthimos film, and I am so excited to see this. I have really grown fond of Yorgos Lanthimos and his filmmaking, just anything he does. I don't even need to know the synopsis. I don't need a trailer. I don't need a poster. I'm there, all right? Let's talk about Predator Badlands. We don't know much about this film. I'll be honest with you. Right now, it is 10 months away. Predator Badlands, being directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who directed 10 Cloverfield Lane, and most recently, Prey. Unfortunately, Prey did not get a theatrical release, but everybody was talking about it online the minute that it dropped. Why didn't this get a theatrical release? And then Alien Romulus, I think, was also kind of meant to kind of go that route. It's just being dropped on streaming. I think because Alien Romulus did so well as Prey doing so good on streaming, they're finally giving us a Predator movie back in theaters. The only thing that we know about this so far is Elle Fanning is starring, Dan Trachtenberg is directing. As far as I'm aware, I believe he's also writing it. Plot is under wraps. That's all we know. As more information comes in, I'm going to try and, make sure that we keep tabs on a lot of these movies. Hopefully we'll know more about this at some point, and when we do, you will be informed. The Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright. It's an adaptation of the Stephen King novel of the same name. It's also a remake of the 1987 film of the same name that is also an adaptation of the novel of the same name. That's a mouthful. The film is being co-written by Michael Bacall, and the synopsis reads as: the futuristic United States of 2025 when the world has become a dystopia. The film stars Glenn Powell, Coleman Domingo, Katie O'Brien, Josh Brolin, Lee Pace, William H. Macy, and Michael Cera. I used to love Edgar Wright's films. I still think I do. The only thing is I just haven't seen Last Night in Soho. I haven't seen the Sparks Brothers, but anything Baby Driver and earlier, I was there. I love Edgar Wright as a filmmaker. I do. Just something about this movie. I've known about it for months and nothing has been happening up here. Like when I hear Bugonia, a Yorgos Lanthimos film, boom, light bulb. I know nothing about it, and yet I'm more sad than ever. But if I had to go with one or the other on release day for opening day, I'm probably going Yorgos Lanthimos. That's not to say that this is a bad movie, but I'm there for Yorgos. I will watch it. I will be there opening day. I think I'm probably going to do a triple feature if all of these remain the same. I don't think they will. I'm excited nonetheless. It's an Edgar Wright film. We're there. November 14th. Now You See Me 3. How do we have 3 of these movies? It's crazy to me that we even have the first one, let alone the second one. Directed by Ruben Fleischer. Written by Seth Grahame-Smith, Gavin James, and Michael Leslie. Their collective works include Beetlejuice, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, Macbeth, Assassin's Creed, Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. As of now, the plot is kept under wraps, but let's talk about who's starring. Jesse Eisenberg, Ariana Greenblatt, Rosamund Pike, Daniel Radcliffe, Mark Ruffalo, Morgan Freeman, Woody Harrelson, Isla Fisher, Dave Franco, Justice Smith, and Dominic Sessa. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not excited for this movie, but Dominic Sessa's here, and I'll go see it for him. I just love him. He's just got a face. He's got an attitude to him that I can really vibe with, especially after seeing The Holdovers. I was just like, I'm there for you, dude. But that's all we have really to look at for this. So let's just keep going. November 21st, Wicked for Good. Don't know what to say about this. This is a sequel to the widely popular film that came out this past year in 2024. Wicked for Good is just Wicked Part 2. If you've seen the play, you could probably know what to expect here. I have not seen the play. I don't know what happens in the second half. Back in the director's chair is John M. Chu, and I'm also just going to assume that the major cast is returning just based on the fact that they shot it back to back. So there's that. Moving on. November 26th, we have Zootopia 2, written and directed by Jared Bush and Byron Howard. We don't really have anything to look at for this quite yet. I think that there was a poster or something that was released a few weeks ago, but it wasn't even American. I think it was like some other country that got a poster for it, and I'll see if I can find it and put it in this video. This is a sequel, obviously, to the widely popular film that came out in like 2015 or 2016. But the synopsis reads as: Brave rabbit cop Judy Hopps and her friend, the fox Nick Wilde, team up again to crack a new case, the most perilous and intricate of their careers. I want to say I'm excited for this, but it's also just been so long since the first film that I don't know if I care that much anymore. And it kind of feels the same way that I did about Frozen 2, where I understand it takes a long time to make a movie. I totally understand that. Do not get me wrong. But I just don't know if I care that much anymore. I've grown up a lot since. Maybe a lot of people really are excited for Zootopia 2 and I just don't know about it. But I guess we'll find out as things get closer and we see a trailer. December 5th, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Returning in the director's chair is Emma Tammy, written by Scott Cawthon, Seth Kudabek, as well as Emma Tammy. Unlike many of the films on this list, that have no synopsis and the plot is kept under wraps. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 makes sure that we know the synopsis here. Anyone can survive 5 nights. This time, there will be no second chances. From the looks of it, this film is trying to sell us on the idea that there's not going to be a third movie. But something tells me that sitting in this theater, watching this on release day, they're probably going to set up a third movie. Much like the other films, there's not really much to go off of. I'm going to assume that the main cast is returning. Let's move on. December 19th. We have a film that I am so excited for. It might be my most anticipated film of the year. I am so genuinely ready for this film. Avatar: Fire and Ash, a film by James Cameron, written by James Cameron, Rick Jaffa, and Amanda Silver. As of now, the plot is unknown. I would assume that the main cast is returning, but I do want to mention one person that is a new addition to the cast, Una Chaplin, who you might know from Game of Thrones. She played the character of Talisa, and she is playing a character in this new film known as Varang, which might be Varang, I don't know quite yet. We do have some awesome stills of this movie right now, and that's really all we have to go off of. There's no official trailer. We have seen some stills of the film, some of the production stills as well. Is that we lost Jon Landau sometime in the middle of last year, unfortunately, and he was a major part of these films' production. I was really hoping that he would be able to see Avatar 3 as well as 4, 5, 6, however many they decide to do. I do also know that Michelle Yeoh joined the cast at one point for these films. I don't think she's going to be in Avatar 3, but 4 and 5 are more likely. But I am excited to see her join the cast. And the last 2 films on our list that we know of so far, of course. December 25th, we have The Anaconda and Marty Supreme. Let's talk about The Anaconda first, because we have a little bit more information on that than we do Marty Supreme. The Anaconda, directed by Tom Gornican, written by Kevin Eaton and Tom Gornican. The synopsis reads as, a group of circus performers on their way to what they think is a new performance location become stranded in a lush rainforest after the boat that they were on and the captain leading the way are eaten and destroyed by an anaconda. They cross paths with the deadly poacher who is hunting the anaconda, who realizes that he might now have enough bait to catch him, but being circus performers, they have a few survival tricks up their sleeves. The film stars Steve Zahn, Paul Rudd, Jack Black, and Thandiwe Newton. I don't know what to think of this. The first thing I thought as soon as I read the synopsis was I thought they're giving me too much information. And then I saw the cast and I was like, this might be something. This might be a lot of fun. Who knows? I don't know what kind of vibe they're going for. I'm excited for this though. Like I know so little about it, but I also know so much about it that I'm just so intrigued by it. I feel like we can't go wrong with this. A story about an anaconda, a giant snake, you know? You can't mess that up. But next up, Marty Supreme. I'm excited for this for a few reasons. Josh Safdie and Timothy Chalamet. Don't really know anything about... Okay, so I just lost that light. My light just died, but we're almost done with the video anyway. We don't really know much about this film. It's currently under wraps. So you know what, we're gonna go ahead and keep going. We lost the light again. We're gonna keep going with the video. We're almost done. We are almost done here. We don't really know much about the story. Written by Josh Safdie and Ronald Bronstein, who has collaborated with him in the past as well. The cast is rather interesting. Not only does the film star Timothy Chalamet, but the film stars Fran Drescher, Gwyneth Paltrow, Abel Ferreira, Tyler the Creator, and Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary. Mr. Wonderful himself is making an appearance in this film. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. The biggest thing that kind of catches my attention as well is just that this is the first project where Josh Safdie as well as Benny Safdie are gonna kind of be going on their own. The way that we've kind of seen the Coen brothers not really working together on their own films anymore and them kind of veering off into their own territory, it's kind of interesting to see that the Safdie brothers are kind of following their lead. You know, we used to see them as frequent collaborators together, working together on films, on everything together really, and this is the first time that we've seen that Josh Safdie's doing his own film, as well as Benny Safdie. I forgot to mention it earlier in the video because we don't really have a release date for it yet. We don't know when this is releasing, and it's very possible that this premieres at a festival, and that's probably why we haven't got a release date or any sort of news regarding the actual film. But Benny Safdie is also working on a film titled The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. This catches my attention for a few reasons. The biggest one being that I'm not the biggest fan of Dwayne Johnson, and I wish he would take a role where he could do something really serious, and this might be that role. In the fact that Benny Safdie's at the director's chair, like I said, I love the Safdie brothers, the fact that they're doing their own movies. We get 2 Safdie movies in the same year is kind of cool. Again, this doesn't really have a release date, so we have no idea when we're going to see this. That's why it wasn't in the list to begin with. But one more film that we don't have a release date for that we know is releasing this year is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. We don't really have much to go off of with the story. I think it's, traditional story of Frankenstein, the same way that we kind of saw something with Pinocchio from him. We do have a few photos from the set, but that's really all we have to go off of. And you can always find those on the IMDb page. I will try to kind of show some on the slides here. We got Mia Goth, Ralph Ineson, Oscar Isaac in the titular role of Frankenstein, Christoph Waltz, Jacob Elordi, and Charles Dance. This is just a great cast, I gotta say. Guillermo del Toro, you just can't go wrong with him. I'm excited to see what we get, but that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. We have so many movies coming out this year that I'm so excited for. Before we finish off the video, what is the film in this list that we named off that maybe you are the most excited for? Maybe not even in this list that you just know is releasing this year and maybe doesn't have a release date. Like I said, when I did this list, I was going off of release dates. We don't really quite know where some of them are releasing yet. And I'm so excited for so many of these titles. It's gonna be such a great year for film. But comment down below, which of these films are you the most excited for? Which of these do you plan on seeing and which of these are you staying away from? Make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.